November 16th. The mayor is ill this evening. And so roll call.
Commissioner Shaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Ide,
Here.
Commissioner Mengelberg, and Mayor Holliday are absent this evening, so Commission President Smith.
All right, and let's stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first thing on our agenda is ceremonies, proclamations, and presentations. And we have a proclamation declaring November 21st through 25th, 2016 as Oregon City Buy Local Week, and Saturday, November 26th as Oregon City Buy Local Small Business Saturday. And I think we have some guests this evening to chat about that. And you could come up to the front and introduce yourself. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so much. Well, good evening, City Commission. My name is Ray Stobie. I'm with Citizens Bank as a commercial loan officer and also vice chair of the Buy Local Oregon City Committee. We're going to give you some background on the committee, where we've been, and where we're going. Buy Local Oregon City was founded nearly 7 years ago by a group of small business advocates, including small business owners and community leaders, with the mission of, through education and promotion, Buy Local Oregon City brings consumers and business together to strengthen the livability and economy of our community. Two key areas of focus for the Buy Local Oregon City program that support the mission is sharing tools of success with businesses and consumer outreach. Our motto of Buy Local is to be local, to help consumers and businesses proactively think Oregon City first, including live local, buy local, dine local, bank local, support local, be entertained local, and be local. Where we're at, we've grown from a 7 member committee to 13. Since 2015, we've hosted 7 what we call eGMOCs, or educational GMOCs. Those are mini seminars that last for about an hour and a half and help businesses find tools to success. Those include safety in business, social media for business, nonprofits, NEDCO. Ruth Miles from the state of Oregon talked about the legislative process and how businesses can navigate that very smooth process down in Salem. Disaster readiness and networking 101. We also have 223 businesses committed to Buy Local Oregon City, an increasing social media presence, including 700 plus followers on Facebook and accounts on Instagram and Twitter. So please follow us on all of those if you haven't already. And currently we are planning our 2017 strategy. A couple of economic stats include, for every $100 that's spent on an independent business or at an independent business, $68 of local impact is created versus $48 spent at a big box retailer. Money spent at local businesses generate 3.5 times more wealth for the local economy compared to chain-owned businesses. Those two statistics support the idea that when you buy local or be local, you really are supporting a child's music lessons or sports activities, helping a local family-owned electric company become a third-generation family-owned electric company who has created many family wage jobs and who gives back to the community continuously. Or you're helping an entrepreneur turn their vision into something tangible. This is a short list, but I think you get the idea. I also believe there is a social impact from buying local, and that is demonstrated on a daily basis within the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce. And that is the personal connections you make with people when you buy local. The relationships built can transcend commerce, and people become friends, resources, and support for one another. This impact cannot be shipped through Prime. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Good job.
Is that everyone?
That's it.
All right, thank you. All right, and that brings us to 16-655. It's a annual update from the Historic Review Board. And Laura Torway.
Thank you very much. I am pleased to announce Derek Metzen, the chair of our Historic Review Board.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me here today. It's great to be here. So there's 5 of us on the Historic Review Board. Myself, Jonathan Stone, Robert Seward, Ken Basinger, and Claire Met, names that you know throughout the community. We've had diverse experiences and bring different viewpoints to the board. This year we have conducted 4 design advice sessions, reviewed 5 matching grant applications, and reviewed 6 applications that came before the HRB for review and approval. Some that you may recognize is a dilapidated carport that was along Middle Avenue. That's now a naturopathic clinic that someone put behind their house. So it's pretty exciting, seeing small business grow. Another one is a gorgeous Queen Anne on 10th and Washington. Nice, elegant blue house. They went through and restored several of their windows, and we were able to match that grant. So that was a wonderful project that we got to review. I'm excited to work with our new staff liaison, Trevor Martin, who recently joined the city. And that is our update for this year. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Well, I'll just say thank you to you, Derek, and everyone else on the Historic Review Board. You do great work, and it's a really important committee for the city, obviously, because of our love of history and wanting to keep this community unique. So, any comments, questions?
No, I think, I have a little history with the Historic Review Board, but the nice thing about it is that everybody follows the same guidelines. Whether it's, even your neighbor, either side, everybody, and that's why these homes are selling for $400,000 or $500,000 now, is that everybody has the same guidelines, everybody follows it, so we have a very cohesive, historic city here now. So appreciate your work and pass that on to your fellow members too, Derek, okay?
I will. Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to serve on that board.
Thank you.
I just want to say thanks to Derek and all the other Historic Review Board members. I think that the way they approach applicants is very thoughtful and really trying to find solutions that meet everyone's needs while still implementing our design guidelines. And I think they've done a really amazing job. It's for a public hearing, land use decisions. Things seem to go very smooth there, so I really do appreciate their input, and it is very important for the character of Oregon City.
Yeah. Thank you, Derek.
All right. That brings us to citizen comments, and that allows citizens to speak on any topic off the agenda for 3 minutes, and there's forms in the back, and I think we have one on our list and one almost on our list. So William Gifford, if you could come forward and introduce yourself and state the city that you live in. He's working on it back there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commission President and Commissioners, and thank you for not calling me Father Time.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Such a refreshing.
We're sorry.
Some staff kudos. Last night at the Berkeley Hills Neighborhood Association, Wyatt Parno and his sidekick Marcy came to present. Where are you going? Over there. On the how fees appear on your utility bill, and I thought it was very educational and very friendly and cordial. It was a very good presentation and professional as always. And also there were elections at the Berkeley Hills last night, and the new chair for Berkeley Hills is Betty Mumm, and Shelley Batty has been reelected as the secretary. Also, kudos to Chris Wadsworth and the Department General, I guess. At every neighborhood association, they present statistics on incidents, police incidents, reports. But last night, they produced something new that I haven't seen before. It's sort of a heat map of incidents in the neighborhood. And I was very impressed at this. They probably got a little help from GIS. But have you seen this, by the way, Chief?
I have not seen that.
It's very cool. It's
What
very
are the
cool.
big red dots?
Yes, that's your
Yeah,
house.
we won't talk about that. That's my house.
I think I know which
as
one
opposed to
of-
just looking at a list of statistics. And also this morning at the at Chamber of Commerce, Good Morning Oregon City was hosted by the city, and it was held at the library. And I know that a lot of staff were there, and it was very well received, and it was really nice. Tomorrow there's an event, and I imagine that somebody's going to talk about that, the Riverwalk event up the Gregory Forum at the college, and I would certainly encourage citizens that are watching to attend that up at the Gregory Forum at the community college. And are you going to mention that later? The time somebody's going to mention that, but I need to mention that next Tuesday the Oregon City Business Alliance is going to be having a very special presentation by the new owner of the former Blue Heron Mill site, George Heideggerken, who will be giving his vision of, and that is open to the public, and I didn't know if people were aware of that. It's 11:30 to 1 o'clock at the Abernathy Convention Center, and for more information, go to, you can reserve tickets at the ocbusinessalliance.com. I'll try to get that posted soon.
Yeah.
So.
And that is there's a fee there, right?
Yes, it's a luncheon. It's a $20 luncheon
There you
fee, but it's. I mean, the last time we had him, it was practically standing room only. It's
Yes.
an amazing presentation. So,
Yep.
just want to let everybody know that that's not just for the Business Alliance.
Great, thank
Thanks,
you,
William.
William. And I don't see anyone. Was there any other citizen comment? Okay. All right. So that brings us to the adoption of the agenda. Is there anyone that wants to pull anything from the consent agenda, or
Nope.
we good with the agenda?
We're good. We're
All
good.
right. And that brings us to our public hearing for tonight. PC 16-109. It's a request for a continuation. And Laura Turway.
Thank you very much. Bill can do the legal reading
Okay.
for us.
All right.
Sorry, it's still. There we go. So we have before you tonight a quasi-judicial hearing, and so that requires some legal statements at the top. There's been a staff report prepared and made available 7 days beforehand. It lists the applicable criteria. If anybody needs to look at them, they are in the staff report. All testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards those criteria or other criteria in the plan or the city's land use regulations that you believe apply to this decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the city commission and other parties an opportunity to respond to the issues would preclude an appeal to the board based on that issue, and failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the city to respond to the issues would preclude an action for damages in circuit court. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Turway.
Thank you very much. The city received an application for annexation of approximately 117 acres, including the Oregon City Golf Course. As you know, annexation applications go before the Planning Commission before they go to the City Commission. The applicant has requested that their Planning Commission hearing get pushed to January 9th. Thus, the City Commission request would be continued as well. And in this case, the applicant is requesting a continuance until February 1st. So because of that continuance, staff is asking that you accept all public testimony or information into the record and continue the hearing to a date certain of February 1st.
Okay. And we have 3 citizens that have signed up to speak. So I'll call you up in 2, Steve Calistini and Mike Steele. And I will open the public hearing. And Steve, you're first. Introduce yourself and the city of residence.
My name is Steve Calistini. I live currently in Oregon City. We just moved there actually from Gladstone, Milwaukee. And good evening. Thank you for letting me get this opportunity to visit with you. As I said, I just recently moved to Oregon City, property and a home. about 400 feet from this development plant. We're right next to the golf course. We closed, and a couple of weeks later found out that this place, this potentially was going in. So naturally, you can understand my concern. I wanted to talk just a little bit about some of the reasons maybe why I'm concerned. And one of them is just purely the traffic issues that we see out in Beaver Creek. Those of you that live out there probably understand that. But case in point, last night coming home, I'm traveling back home eastbound, and I'm looking at a mile of traffic that started from the high school clear to the light at 213. So that's pretty consistent in the evenings. And so with this kind of a development, I can only imagine it getting worse. So my concern is about, one, the livability and lifestyle, the livability index, if you would, of that area, how it's going to change if we end up allowing that kind of a high-density development, the kind of strain it'll put on the infrastructure, and 1,000 home sites, or that's what I understand is going in. I've read through the application. It's a little ambiguous. I don't fully understand how many we're looking at, but I understand close to 1,000 equals about 1,800 vehicles if you look at the standard statistics on that. One of the concerns, of course, would be parking. You can go to just down the street at Oak Glen Road and find a similar type of development where people are parking now on the street because there's not adequate parking in their development down there. 3,800 plus family members on 117 acres is pretty high density. Potentially, my concern is what does it do to the school systems? We're looking at, if you divide the numbers, potentially 600 more high school students in an already at capacity high school, probably over 1,200 grade schools. I don't know what the capacities of those, but can the area handle that right now? So potentially another 4,000 daily traffic movements would add to what we already see. So one of the concerns I have is the location, the school. Pulling up some recent statistics, actually, by the NHTSA, 94 to 2004, there were 182 school-age pedestrians fatalities in Portland, of which 31% of those were actually vehicles other than school vehicles. So that's an issue in our school areas. This is a kind of a bad place, I feel, for this kind of a development. And then finally, this development will border an airport, and I've spent my whole life making a living at airports, large and small. Portland International to some of the smaller airports is like this size here. And I can tell you that this type of a development sharing a common boundary is basically death to that airport. If not, it will severely limit the flying abilities of the people there and restrictions. I'm saying Santa Monica, Long Beach, I've flown out of those airports, I know. The kind of restrictions that they put on airplanes to make sure they don't make too much noise. So what happens is developers or planning commissions allow these kind of developments into these areas, and then eventually there's enough people that get petitioned together and they close the airport down.
Your
Airport was there long before, so we've seen it over and over again.
Your time's up.
Time's up. Okay. So totally, I'm against this planned development, and I encourage you to consider closely at it too.
Okay, very good.
Thanks,
Thank you. Mr. Steele.
Hi, yes, Mike Sterling. Gentleman must be my neighbor.
sorry.
I don't even know him, but he kind of hit the nail on the head. But I actually live outside of Oregon City. I'm actually in Clackamas County, so I wanted everybody here to know that. But the development does affect me. I'm on Meadow Avenue, which is a dead-end street, and so I just wanted to come and give you guys my comments and when I've talked to my neighbors about this development. One of my biggest concerns is the schools. I have a son that attends Beaver Creek, and I know that the school district has closed 2 elementary schools in the last few years. So, as the gentleman was saying, they're looking at 1,000 units. I don't know how many kids that would include. Is there any idea of any new schools opening? I mean, right now, my son's class size is 32 students, which we all would agree that's kind of high. So I'm concerned about that. My street is a dead-end street, and the plan that I seen when it was first came out in the summer, it was at the golf course. It showed that that street would actually come into my street. And I don't understand how that would work because it goes out. It's a very narrow street. So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned with the kids, children playing, that they might get struck by a vehicle. But mostly it's the livability of our community. That area has generally had half-acre lots. And if you're out in that area, you know, there's a lot of people, they enjoy that type of area. And it just doesn't seem like the right place for that size of development. So I hope that you folks really look at this hard and deny the application.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Mike.
Thank you.
And Mayor Neely.
Doug Neely, Oregon City. This annexation has been a long time in coming. I'd like to point out that the reason, originally there was discussion of having that all industrial land. You had the residents in the area on Fairway Downs area objected to that because they didn't want to look directly onto industrial lands. There was a major process that resulted in litigation by members in the city, the involved Metro, because there was objections for residential going in there. But the point is, it was the citizens that wanted residential going in there, living in that area. So you have a gradation from industrial to general employment into the residential area. The owner of that property had committed a great deal of money into the planning of what you wanted to see there. I don't know if it's the same plans that exist now, but the concept was to have home-based businesses there that, and I don't know if that's still the plan, so if that is the plan, it does have a work component in there. But the point is, the owner of the airport has already annexed the property in there. I presume that ultimately they're not interested in serving as an airport. They're interested in developing that land. And so if the owner of the airport has a problem, if that airstrip has a problem there, that should be the person that's testifying regarding whether this is a difficulty or not. I presume that's not what they're going to see as for their long-term use of that property, and that's why they did the annexation. It's high time it comes in. It's been a long effort for many, many years, and I encourage you to approve that annexation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Anyone else? And the applicant's not here this evening either, right? All right, so we have, do we have a motion to continue?
Yep. Move to approve, or move to continue PC 16-109, or annexation AN-16-0003. Continue to February 1st.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Shaw, seconded by Commissioner Ide. Call for the vote.
Commissioner Ide? Aye. Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Passes.
Okay.
All right.
Oops, there we go.
That brings us to,
Do we want to discuss any of the, do we want to discuss any of the feedback for people that were here, or just
do you want,
Not recommend.
not doing that?
We
Okay.
still have the
Oh, I
planning-
need to
we still have
close
the
it.
planning commission hearings, then I'll
Okay.
come before you again at the city
All right.
commission hearings.
Well, thank you folks for coming for this.
and I need
Yeah.
to close the public hearing.
Oh, I thought you did. Okay.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
All right. And that brings us to our first item under general business, and that's 7A, Clackamas Park Boat Ramp Support Letter to the Oregon State Marine Board, and Community Service Director Phil Lewis.
Thank you, Commission President.
Oh, you're over
and
there. I was
changing it up on you. Thank you for your time. Staff is seeking approval from City Commission to send a letter of support to the Oregon State Marine Board in recognition of the need to move the boat ramp 350 feet downstream of the current location. The Oregon State Marine Board, as you are aware, requested by the end of this calendar year to receive a letter of support from the city in order to continue the planning efforts of the long-term boat ramp, which would be at Clackamas Park. As you'll see in your packet, I've included a draft version of the letter which states the Commission's support, as well as recognizing the hesitation of loss of upland park within the conceptual designs which were presented during the context of the original study. So at that, I will open it up for questions and discussion.
Okay, being that the mayor usually speaks on topics first, and he's not here, I'm going to speak on this topic first. I was just kidding, Dan. He's going to see that. All right. We have talked about this topic for quite a while, and I have a couple concerns. I have a lot of concerns about it. So I think this is like the third time this has come to us, at least in topic. We have, on this commission and previous commissions, had wide-ranging discussions about Clackamas Park, how Clackamas Park is going to look, what it's going to look like in the future, what we as a city expect moving forward in terms of the RV park, whether or not the RV park was going to be a component of the park in the future, whether or not the event parking lot across the street would be for sale or not for sale. It's currently for sale. And then now the discussion of the boat ramp and the temporary fix on the current boat ramp, which has been completed. And we know that that temporary fix is going to last approximately 5 years or so. I think that was right. Correct. And so the real question is, moving forward, if we want to keep a boat ramp in Clackamas Park, most likely is going to be on the Clackamas River because of the hydrology of the river, and that means moving the ramp. Moving the ramp creates a huge dilemma because, in my mind, because it, in at least the three versions that we have seen, eats half of Clackamas Park. And so I have huge reservations about signing any letter that recommends that without knowing the effect and what our expectations are for the rest of the park. So I want to be careful about it, and I almost want to recommend not sending a letter at this point at all. And part of that reason is we have a huge discussion about what that park's going to look like into the future. These are things that I think the next commission should tackle very soon because it's been put off way too long. Questions about whether the RV park is an asset that the city wants to keep open, whether it's not, whether it's going to stay in that site or move to a separate part of the park. That's a huge question, and depending on the answer to that, could affect the boat ramp. The question of whether or not we sell the lot across the street, which is typically used for, at this time, for boat parking. If we sell that lot, how does that affect the parking for boats in the park? And if that has to move, how does that affect the boat ramp? If the boat ramp is built downriver from where it's currently at, takes out half of the green space of the park, leaving the current boat parking that's there right by the completely there. Our park is shrunk by a huge factor. And so the question is, well, Does that mean flipping the parking lot to the other side with the boat ramp and bringing back green space in the park where the parking is now? We haven't had any of those conversations. Not only have we not had any of those, well, we've had those conversations. We just haven't come to any conclusion. We have never really had a conversation of whether or not this city needs 2 boat ramps. We've never had the conversation about what we want to see that park look like. Our recent conversation is, well, they're paying for it, so we should let them do what they want. Well, you know what? Sometimes you get a Christmas present from your grandma, and she bought it, and you don't want to wear it, and you're not going to wear it. You're going to take it back to the store. And, so we have to have this conversation, I think, about what we want in that park. And if we want the boat ramp to be there or moved, then we can then use that support letter. Or write that support letter. I think we have a lot of questions to answer before that. And I think most of those questions could be answered within a year's time if the next commission focuses on that as a goal. I'm really concerned about sending the letter in general at all, but especially when it says things like, we recognize that the moving of the boat ramp has potential to reduce green space. Has potential? We know it's going to reduce green space. It's going to reduce half the park. And so I think some of these words in here are we need to be very careful about it. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is I didn't go to the open house. We had a public open house, and I want to just clarify to make sure I'm right on this. It was a public open house to have a discussion about, I think, just the 3 scenarios. Is that right? And you may, I don't know if you know.
I wasn't in attendance either,
Okay.
but the general discussion was on the hydrology study, the reason why the boat ramp needed to be moved from the current location downstream, and showed what some potential conceptual designs might look like given the need for the movement of the ramp. So the ramp is the one piece which has been agreed upon through Oregon State Marine Board and Oregon Fish and Wildlife. The upland development where the vehicles travel and how they get to the ramp and back from the ramp has not been developed in a serious way.
So I guess my comment would be, when we have community open houses or any kind of public input, and we only give the public 3 crappy scenarios, they're going to pick the less crappy one. And when we haven't really asked all the questions that this community should really be asking. 1, do we need 2 boat ramps? 2, if we do need 2 boat ramps, is it important for us to do it cheaply at a place we may have huge concerns about? Or is it more important for this community to say we want to own this boat ramp and we want to build it and we want it where we want it? And whether or not this community wants an RV park, whether or not this community wants any of the other things we've talked about, without having that dialogue, I think this is a huge mistake to jump into saying we support this, because I'm not sure we do yet. I think that's probably, especially with well, that's it. I'll listen to any other comments.
Nancy?
Yeah, let's see. Put my name on there.
Nancy.
I'm like, where is it?
Commissioner Ide.
There we go. Okay, so
Oh, sorry.
I understand your concerns, and I agree with a lot of them. However, I have 3 questions. First of all, can the location be changed if we submitted the letter, maybe with a few revisions? Can the location be changed over the next 5 years or so, or whatever it would take, but by the time you get all the permits and it's ready to go? I mean, can we say, this is where we wanted it initially, but we've changed our mind and we want to move it somewhere else?
It would be So the Oregon State Marine Board has stated that the placement of the ramp is where they are recommending. There is a very thorough permitting process, which includes a lot of the state and jurisdictional approvals, of which the Marine Board acts as a partner along that process with the city. Through the hydrology study and through the Marine Board and Oregon Fish and Wildlife, that is the location of the ramp itself that they are recommending based on the hydrology study. So with all of the information that they have at their disposal, that is the location of the ramp. The upland development, again, the access to the ramp, that's all something that can be negotiated with the Marine Board as we go through the process. Having conversations with the Marine Board representative, they're open to discussing what that will look like. Again, their concern is creating a ramp, again, that is a 20-year plus solution, and looking at the hydrology study, that is the location that has been identified in order to give the best chance of success long term.
But they didn't look at the Willamette.
They did not.
Although the price was a lot higher.
Well, yeah. That's my point.
Yeah,
I mean, if we want it on the Willamette and we think it's valid, then we, are willing to pay for it. We don't know that. We haven't had that conversation with the community.
And I would say that the direction that I've been given from the Marine Board, they're hesitant to even look at the Willamette, given the challenges that would present during that process. Damage to the ramp, the overall cost, the additional hydrology studies, movement of facilities as it relates to restrooms, parking lots, things like that.
My second question is, what is the impact of delaying the letter of support, let's say 6 months or even a year? I know you said December was the deadline, but is there another deadline? So that in the process we could be working on some other, on a plan, a different plan.
Yeah, the deadline's not a firm deadline in the typical sense, where we would not be able to develop a ramp eventually if we decided to still develop a ramp using the Marine Board. The challenge we run into at that point is, if we don't hit that deadline, is we're not on staff queues for work plans, we're not in the budgetary process for the state, and we're also further delaying a very lengthy permitting process, which will take close to that 5-year timeline, which is, given typical weather cycles, the amount of time that the temporary fix on the current ramp will take.
So the impact is basically just delaying the whole process.
It would be delaying the process and possibly being without a boat ramp if we're not able to determine an appropriate location that we can both agree to.
Okay. Can the letter be withdrawn? Let's say we do submit it. Can it be withdrawn? Like, if we then go through a plan and we want to make some changes or whatever, can we just withdraw it altogether? Or is it, I'm just trying to cover,
if you're considering already withdrawing it before we've even written it, then we shouldn't write it.
Well, but I mean, if we're wanting to meet a deadline, that's my question.
I would say, I can't speak on behalf of the Marine Board. What I can say is that they were open to negotiating what the upland development will look like, which it's my understanding that is the majority of the basis of the concern of the commission is taking away green space from the park, which I also, that's of concern to me as well. They're open to that discussion. I would imagine that if we were not able to come to terms on a development that met the needs of the city as well as the needs of the Marine Board, that would be, ultimately an option of the commission.
Okay.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yeah, Nancy too. Okay. So what's nice about being last like this, you get to hear most of the things already. Usually I get to be the first one out of the barrel down here. Anyway. So anyway, you've heard a lot about what I was going to be speaking about. I will respond to the open house we had. What was interesting is that we actually had a fishermen there, users of the boat ramp. And the reason they were there is because they are strong proponents of having the ramp in the Willamette. They don't care to have it back in the Clackamas River because that's a river, it changes, and where the Willamette's fairly consistent of where, for the future and everything like that. But where I got a little disappointed was that the Marine Board would not even consider that, even though that's what our user group, our focus group, was telling us that's where it should be. And so I'm hesitant about the letter because we never really explored that in depth about using the Willamette as the launch. And as my fellow commissioners know, I did kind of a rough draft of what I thought could happen for that park, where that RV park could be. If we move the boat ramp to the Willamette, that would take where the existing boat ramp, it create kind of a real pedestrian environment for the park, and maybe that's where we launch kayaks or something like that. But so I had kind of a just a real rough concept plan of what I thought that park could be. So I'm at the same point here with Commissioner Smith that says I'm not comfortable with the letter. I know, and so I'm worried about the deadlines. That if we miss this deadline now, do we have to wait a year? So when do they do their work schedule at the Marine Board or whoever doing this? Are we out a year, or how far are we out before we can apply again?
And I can't answer that fully, but I do know that in order to get onto their work queue, that was one of the points of emphasis with the deadline.
I have a couple staff questions, but I'm not sure if you will know the answers because I don't know at what point the switch off was. But when we had this topic brought to us the first time with looking at the three proposals, we had a lot of the same concerns at that meeting. Those concerns were then taken back to the Marine Board, or were they not?
The culmination of that discussion was to invite the Marine Board to come and give the open house.
Okay.
And have discussions about the reason for locating it where it was proposed on the Clackamas.
So other than the open house, there wasn't really a response from the Marine Board in terms of our concerns about green space, other than that'll be something to talk about in the future?
Correct. Yeah.
I guess what bothers me, in addition to everything I've already said, is, again, this is another regional asset, right? Where the entire burden is going to be in terms of where it's at and who it affects, in terms of the placement of it, is going to be ours. And in other regional kind of projects, for instance, even ones that we were fully supportive of, like the bridge closure, we said, hey, the bridge is going to be closed for too long. It's going to affect downtown. What can you do to mitigate that? And they said, well, we're going to do all your sidewalks. There's been no effort from the Marine Board to say, well, we understand that we are taking half your park to build this boat ramp, and so here's some scenarios of how we can fix that by switching the parking or by doing anything else. But what they did is bring the community the same three versions, and then it was brought to us again, the same three versions, asking us to write this letter. And I think it's crazy. I think we should have a little bit more input in that. We should also expect more of the Marine Board to say if they really want this in our community, and I think we want it in our community too, how do we mitigate, though, the other problems? And we haven't gotten an answer to that. And until we have an answer, or at least some interest in letting us know that they have some ability to respond to that, I think it's premature to write a letter. Is there a motion?
Back on the agenda here.
If I might interject as well,
Yes.
the writing of the letter and stating that you were interested in at least starting that conversation might give the Marine Board the opportunity to offer suggestions or input in what that mitigation might look like.
If it doesn't say we support it. Is there a motion?
I don't know if we're there yet. I'd like to.
Mr.
gonna
Lewis,
think
when,
about-
when is the letter due?
December 31st is the date that they gave me. I'm sure that we could have a discussion with them. You know, again, it's not a December 31st at 11:59 p.m. We could have a discussion with them as to how we might craft that letter in order to, again, make sure we're meeting their needs as well as accurately reflecting the hesitation of the commission.
So I'd move we continue 16-657.
Is there a second?
There is second.
Moved and seconded. Call for the vote.
Do we have a
Commission-
discussion?
Oh, yeah, discussion?
Just
Yeah, go
really
for
quick. I support the motion simply because I think that it's, if we can get some more information on what the, what delaying sending it in would do, if they're able to make changes to the park, you know, what suggestions they might have along those lines, if that can be part of the letter, just whatever else we need in there. What else could we add into the letter that would make it easier for us to say yes?
I don't think we need to add. I think we need to subtract. Call for the vote.
Commissioner Ide,
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye. All right, that brings us to 7B. It's the intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas County Health, Housing, and Human Services, Behavioral Health Division, and for Mental Health Services, and Police Chief.
Good evening, Commission. Urs, this is so simple compared to what you were just dealing with.
No one.
You never know.
You haven't started yet.
You never know.
So this, what you have before you is an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas County that we're asking you to sign that would allow the provision of mental health professional response and services in situations where an officer believes the advanced skills of a mental health professional would be helpful. Increasingly, since I've been a police officer, I think everybody has seen with major incidents that you can think of that have happened in this city over the last few years. The percentage of people that we've dealt with in the homeless community and the people who do have homes. But mental health, there's help for people who are ready to hurt themselves right now, and that's it. Other than that, there's a lot of people who fall into different categories who are in different mental health crisis, and unfortunately, our police officers are kind of the only ones who get thrown at a lot of mental health issues that other people should be dealing with. They do a fantastic job, and we've trained them and continue to train them in crisis intervention, but this is kind of an extension, and I have to give some credit to Don Johnson, the police chief of Lake Oswego, who kind of was the initial pusher on this. Essentially what we're doing is the county has had something in place with the sheriff's office of a couple mental health workers that were available to go to calls, helped with training, but then also sometimes are just a resource for officers to call when they were dealing with somebody who might have been in crisis. So we just kind of got together and said, why don't we pool some of our money and add some resources to that so we have more resources available for our officers. In addition to them being able to come out to a scene if necessary or do a phone consult, they're kind of plugged into the mental health system, and so a lot of times just with a phone call they can find out a lot of information about somebody that they're dealing with that's going to help them better bring a situation to resolution in a calmer, more peaceful way, and then hopefully get them help or bring to the attention somebody who's coming into our contact repeatedly, and that mental health can kind of step up and deal with them appropriately, as people need that a lot more than they do a police officer. It to us is a little over $6,000. It's just a piece. A lot of cities are coming in together to pay for a piece of who this person is, and it's kind of a real win-win, I think.
That's great. Comments, questions?
Now, Lake Oswego's doing this. Any other cities, are we sharing these individuals, or Chief, how are we?
Yes, as far as I know, now I do not. I know Lake Oswego has already approved. We have. I'm anticipating that this will get approved. I know Milwaukee, West Lynn, Sandy are all considering the same thing. I'm assuming. I haven't heard anything to the contrary of whether or not they would all be going forward. And frankly, if one or two of them bowed out, I think the rest of us would probably try and, it is important enough, I think, that even if there's just 3 or 4 of us cities and we had to pay a little more money, this has become probably the number one issue in law enforcement these days, I think, is making sure that we're doing everything we can to address mental health issues that people have in a way that's better for them and in turn better for us.
Well, obviously the police officers are not trained mental health experts, so this is obviously going to be an advantage for them here and help them through their daily job there and stuff. So, but the 6,000, that's just based upon Oregon City and Lake Oswego right now then?
Yeah, well, no. So if you look, and there's in the attachment, there is literally broken down by population of these other cities, and it's just a percentage. So Oregon City is 20% of what that cost would be. So I do not know any of these cities that are not going to participate, but if there was $5,000 or $6,000 a city's not participating, I think the other, if we all chipped in an extra $1,000 or something, but it's basically a staff position that we're going to share. But I think the people who are doing this right now for the county have been helping us anyway. There have been calls that we've made and said, hey, we kind of got a problem here, and they have been really good when we have major incidents about helping out, even though we're not really a part of the program. And so this is just us adding a staff person, and it gives us a little more ability to kind of steer things like training that we need or things that we want from them, because we're paying for a little bit of it.
So would this person actually make a site call with the officer there, or is this something done over the phone, or what's the response when an officer has a situation?
It is both. So there's a lot of situations. There's sometimes things happen like this. We had somebody who was calling 911 30 times a day. Now, that is a crime, but somebody who's doing that, who does not listen to you, we can fix that by taking them to jail, but that's not really what they need, right? So in a circumstance like that, for us to be able to have this better working relationship and the same point of contact with mental health, we go, look, here's what's going on. Either you guys do something or we're going to have to. So they're really good about helping reach out to family or coming up with solutions that we might not have other than taking somebody to jail. But when we have a major issue or somebody who is in crisis, Like one example where there was a crisis worker. If you remember hearing inside of the last year up on McLaughlin Boulevard, there was a 19, 20-year-old, somewhere in there, gentleman in major crisis with a rifle. One of our officers got hurt on that call, and he ended up, unfortunately, losing his life. But there were mental health professionals on the scene. There were 2 of these crisis workers, as far as I know, trying to help. Now, in that circumstance, it didn't change the outcome. So that doesn't mean it's not going to another circumstance. But what is really important in that circumstance for everybody, I think the community, I know it's very important for the officers, if there's not a good outcome like that, if they're forced to do something, to know that they tried everything, that there wasn't something that, some stone that they didn't turn over trying to do everything, that's a big deal too. So the answer's both.
Yeah, so I guess just one last. We'll be sharing this person, so I'm just wondering, are we going to be able to have that response once the city jump on? Are they going to increase the staff level? Or I just want to make sure that we're going to spend $6,000 here and we are going to have the opportunity for that person to respond from the county to what our needs are here.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think fortunately, in this county at any given time, if I went and looked at the computer right now, there may or may not be 1 or 2 calls where somebody related to some kind of mental illness. There are times where I could probably look and there's 8 across the county. But there is downtime, and we're not constantly having these calls aren't hitting us every minute. So, but there's going to be more availability. One question I had gotten to was, this is not 24 hours, so, and it is not 24 hours yet, but it's a lot more hours than we have right now. The other thing that I think as we move forward with this, if this is as successful as I think it is going to be, and we start looking back, it might be something that we figure out, hey, it would be worth it for this city to be spending 5 times this. We're just going to have to see. To underscore, if just the importance of this, Robert Lipke was killed by somebody in mental health crisis, somebody that we had contact with several times before that, leading up to this. There was an officer-involved shooting that you're aware of that took place in this city inside of the last year. Same thing, subject in mental health crisis. Now, I can't tell you that would have changed the outcome of those things, but I think it is really important for us to do everything that we can to explore this, make this tool available, and we're trying this for a year, and we're going to see how it works for everybody, see if it works for us, and then revisit it at the end of doing this for 1 year.
That's great.
I like that there's a training aspect involved, and that the county staff would help to train your officers, and not only that, but just on-the-job training too, that when you have to call them, that they come out and then your officers are there observing everything as well. So there may be times when perhaps a staff isn't available, but yet they've been trained enough that they can take care of things themselves too. So I like that aspect of it. I'm super supportive of this. I think it's great.
All right, thank you.
Great tool in the toolbox.
Yep. All right, that brings us to 7C.
Commission President, could I just add one thing real quick?
Yeah.
I just really like to acknowledge, and we need a blinker.
Yeah.
Just like to acknowledge and thank Chief Band for really approaching head-on and thoughtfully a changing society that we live in and the issues that we have to deal with, not only for the betterment of the citizens or the person in crisis, but also for our officers who have to deal with this on a daily basis. We continue to see the contacts increase. This doesn't know borders or wealth or socioeconomic position in life, and we're seeing more and more of it. And so I really do want to thank the chief for being forthright and trying to find ways to address these issues rather than, ignoring incarceration and just not addressing it. So I think it is a great service for the community, and I agree with Commissioner Ide that I fully support trying to find these solutions and partnerships to address the changing society that we live in.
All right.
So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas County Health, Housing, and Human Services for Behavioral Health Division for Mental Health Services.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call for the vote.
Commissioner Ide?
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye. All right, 7C, contract amendment for the completion of construction of the Lynn Avenue Sewer Improvement Project.
Oh, please.
John Lewis.
Why do we want to
Public
complete
Works Director.
Thank you, Commissioners. I want to make this simple, too. We thought about putting it on the consent agenda, but we kind of wanted to provide a community update as well. This project there's not a lot of people seeing it because they have to drive around it most of the time. So it's an interesting project. It's one of our sewer moratorium projects. David Brokaw with Wallace is in the audience. Dave, you want to come up here just in case they really want to grill me? I'll have somebody to deflect you. David Brokaw is with Wallace Engineering, and he's the go ahead and sit up here. Project engineer, and I asked him earlier to show up, and then I forgot I asked him, so he was in the audience, and I said, wow, okay, we didn't coordinate this, so I don't even think David's seen the presentation, but he's definitely seen the project. So with that, we'll go through it. We're talking about the Lynn Avenue Sewer Improvement Project. This is essentially our third major project for our sewer moratorium, and it's really along Lynn Avenue, down the hill from Pearl, down to 4th. So I'll give you a little bit more information than that, but we really kind of wanted to give you a little shock and awe with some photographs because that's been part of the problem. So we'll try to do that and move along. So the project background, if you remember, this was one of our moratorium areas. It's we'll resolve 2 moratorium areas, and they're shown there on a small map, which I know is too small for you to review, but the 2 areas on Lynn Avenue, north and south, that will remain. There will remain 1 final moratorium area, which is out on the Hazelwood area. In fact, we just looked at that project today, and that's got some complexities that we're all looking forward to as well. But we hired Wallace to do the design work on this, and we hired them to not only do the design work, but we also hired them to do the design work for the sewer, but we also hired them to do some preliminary design work on the Lynn Avenue widening project, something that would incorporate some better, safer pedestrian bicycle corridor as well. So there was a provision in that contract to do not only the sewer work but also the roadway work. In September 2016, we awarded a construction project to Interlochen, and they're the contractor that's doing the work. We think they're a good contractor. They've brought the right equipment and the right know-how, and they're doing a good job with it. Just wanted to share with you their bid results from when we awarded the contract. They were the low bidder, so this is a low bid contract of $404,263. They were under the engineer's estimate and under 3 other bidders. The project itself includes a variety of pipe replacement, and 455 feet of that is open cut. In other words, they have to actually dig down and find a new grade and put a new pipeline in a new location. There's some other sections of it that are bursted, where we're basically replacing the old. We're pulling that pulling head that you see up there through the old pipe, breaking it away and pulling in a bigger pipe. So that's part of the project. And then there's several other little pieces associated with the work that are also costly and take a fair amount of effort to get accomplished. The things that we considered, we considered with Wallace, were whether we should replace the pipeline in place or pick a new alignment. And we elected to pick a new alignment for a variety of reasons, but some of the main ones were a lot of that pipeline is off the edge of the road, and it's not in the best place for There's a lot of retaining walls and property impacts that we would have taken on. We especially know that now that we've kind of gotten into the new alignment, in that we would have really would have taken pretty significant effort and had a lot of impact off the edge of the roadway there with that project if we had not moved it. So we're happy about the fact that we chose to move that off the existing alignment. We did do some geotechnical work, and the reason why I bring that up is because most of the problems that we're having are related to the difference in what we thought we were going to run into there. And in hindsight, I think we would have done more geotechnical work, because the 3 locations along the alignment where we actually did soil borings, we didn't find some of the boulders that we're coming across now. So when we put the project together, the contractor had access to that information, and so it was part of the bid package. And so they made their assumptions based on what they saw in the geotechnical analysis. And like I said, that didn't include boulders and soft soil conditions. Again, we considered the expansion of Lynn Avenue. There's also some pretty detailed considerations with regard to those existing properties. A lot of the properties along Lynn Avenue actually sit down below Lynn Avenue, so trying to figure out some of the complexities associated with that was another component to the design work. So we anticipated trench conditions kind of like what's up in the top right picture, clean, narrow, trenches, trench cuts with a trench box that protects the workers while they're down deep in that trench, soils that stand up on their own. And we really, again, looking along the bottom, originally we started this project with the idea of allowing one-way traffic along Lynn Avenue, and maneuvering through that, even though it required some delays and holding back traffic. The intent was to stay in that far, I guess it would be the southbound travel lane. And then we were going to do temporary trench patching and kind of get people around the work zone. Unfortunately, that's not been what we found early on in the project. We found mostly large boulders intermixed amongst soft soil conditions. So, just trying to get those large rocks out of our trench meant a lot of the surrounding soils was displaced and caved in. A lot of the pavement underneath that caved in material was compromised, so it needed to be kind of excavated as well. Trying to get compaction underneath those caved in areas is not appropriate, so once you have that kind of a problem, the idea is you cut the pavement again and you knock all that stuff down and you make sure you get good compaction. So we've been dealing with a lot of this. We asked the contractor to bring in a rock hammer so that maybe he could try hammering on those while they're in the trench, and the soils are so soft in there, especially under kind of the moisture condition, that we were essentially moving the rocks and moving them into other utilities that we were concerned about damaging, like our water line and the gas line along there. So we asked them to bring in the rock. They still need the rock hammer, because when they get these rocks out, they're so large they can't get them into their trucks to haul them away. So they still need to break those rocks apart. And then we also asked them to bring in a larger excavator just to deal with so that they would be more productive in their excavation work, and help to move some of those boulders a little easier. So we also found that with that larger equipment and with those trench cave-ins, it was really unsafe to be trying to manage a lane of traffic through there. So we proceeded to allow the contractor, or directed the contractor actually, to close the road and provide a detour. So the other little problem we had is we found some unmapped water lines that were long since abandoned, but they happened to be right in our alignment and actually off to one edge of the alignment, which didn't help our trench shoring much. We had trench failures, somewhat due to the rocks, somewhat due to the soft soil conditions, but also due to that old pipeline. So we've been dealing with that. And then there's the old county road section, that the old Market Road, which has got so there's asphalt over concrete, and once this thing started to fail, the weight of that material just further kind of impacted the trench shoring. So it's just been difficult, and I wanted you to know that so that when we share with you kind of some of the impacts, like to our schedule, we're behind schedule, or the contractor's behind schedule by about a month. So this is his detailed schedule. We've just kind of marked it up to show where he is today and where they had projected to be, and it's about a month off. And the other thing we wanted you to know is we don't use force account as a way to pay for additional work often. Typically, we'll have a change order that we'll prepare, and we'll get a bid from the contractor, and we'll agree on that. This work doesn't lend itself well to a bid because there's so much uncertainty about where those tough digging conditions are really going to be. So we moved to what we call force account work. The contract has provisions for that. It's a standard method of working with the contractor. We just don't do it often. So to help us through that, we brought Dave in, and we've added our construction observation hours so that we can confirm what the contractor is asking for in terms of employees, equipment, materials, those kind of things. So we're watching that much closer than we had originally intended. And and it helps us cover or figure out how much labor they apply, all those kinds of things. So we think it's the right way to go, but it adds a little risk to the city. And it is the contractor, while it's qualified, they're a small contractor, so they've already kind of expressed concerns about how are we going to get paid for this and when are we going to get paid for this, what's the city's process, and how often are we going to have to go back. And we decided to ask the engineer to provide yet another estimate based on the digging conditions as to how much additional time it would take to do the work. And so they've done that for us. There it goes. So they've looked at their own inspector reports, looked at the contractor's daily inspection reports, looked at the work completed to date, and looked at the progress that they're making. And based on that, this is an estimate, but so typically with the change order, we ask you to approve a specific change order amount. In this case, we're asking you to approve a specific not to exceed number. So we would have some flexibility there to work with the contractor. It gives the city manager the authorization to sign change orders up to $150,000. So there will still be a change order. We'll just do them at progress payments such that we can authorize those. So the first one, I can't remember. It seemed like it was getting close to $50,000, and we'll have a couple more of those. And if we need to go beyond that, we'll be back to talk to you again. But that's kind of the gist of why we're asking for the additional dollars and how much we're asking for. And despite those, this is still within the allocation that we had for this year's budget, and it's really between all the projects that we've been able to get some of those projects done a little bit cheaper. This one's going to essentially spend out what we'd planned to spend out for the moratorium projects through this one, but it's going to help us get it done, and it's going to be done in a way that the contractor is going to be treated fairly, but he's looking forward to getting this job done as well.
I was going to mention this before, but the number for the agenda is 16-666. So that might have been.
Yeah, I
All right.
didn't pick that number. It was a
I know,
sign.
it was a complete coincidence. Any comments or questions?
Well, it's one of those, it's kind of an awkward feeling in that we kind of took the lowest bid, and then all of a sudden the price starts coming up, whereas if we would have taken one of the other bids, would it have, maybe they knew something we didn't, but after, we've seen the pictures, and I don't think anybody else could have envisioned that, regardless of who got it. So that's usually how I interpret these things, is all of a sudden, okay, we took the low bid and everything, but it's interesting because I learned all about, this is different, you're calling this forced account compensation. In the library world, working with Mo, we called these contingencies, and so I'm learning some different language here tonight. So
I would say I think even the highest bidder would have had the same kind of justification. So I guess I just really wanted you to see that there was a range of what people thought this work could happen.
Yeah.
And it's true, maybe some of them assumed different digging conditions, but they could have argued the same kind of, made the same kind of arguments.
Yeah, okay.
Commissioner Hyde? Nope. All right, thank you.
So,
we look for, a motion.
I'll move to approve 16-666, CI 15-018.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Call for the vote.
Commissioner Ide?
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye. All right, that brings us to the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call for the vote.
Commissioner Ide?
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye. All right. Yeah, I was reading that communication, so I thought, I can only do that after the city manager, but I see what it says now. City manager.
Thank
report.
you, Commission President, evening commissioners. So we'll have a couple of managers report updates tonight. I'll start with Mr. John Lewis with an update on the Malala Avenue project grant application.
thank you. So, let me get my head around this one. So the Malala Avenue completion project is moving through the process, the competitive selection process, and doing very well. We had a meeting before the C4, and Nancy, thank you for filling in on that meeting and representing the city. We had a meeting before the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee whereby all the projects that were submitted for grant funding presented, and then public comment was provided. Did an outstanding job. We had several speakers there that were did a great job and provided good arguments for our project. I think we did a better job than any of the other projects, and I think it's reflected that way in where our standing is. The project we're most competing with, I think, is the West Lynn Highway 43 project, which is a good project. It would be good for Oregon City citizens that drive between Oregon City through to Lake Oswego, so it would be an improvement along that corridor. So we support the project as well, as long as it doesn't hinder our ability to get our allocation for funding. So this is a $8 million project that we're asking for a little bit less than $4 million. And today I received a letter that was signed by Commissioner Paul Savas, Mayor of the City of Canby, Brian Hodson, and the Mayor of the City of Wilsonville, Tim Knapp. And the reason those three were signing this is because the Commissioner Savas is obviously a Clackamas County Commissioner. He's also the C4 County Chair, and he's the JPAC member representative for Clackamas County. And then Brian Hodson is, along with being the Mayor of Canby, he's also a C4 co-chair. And Tim Knapp is the Metro City representative on JPAC. So these are all Metro advisory groups that that the cities, it's part of the process for the selection, and they have recommended the three priorities being West Lynn as the top priority project, Oregon Cities as the second priority project, in Wilsonville they have a I-5 pedestrian crossing that they'd like to do some conceptual design work on. So it's going to be competitive, and there's still some work to be done. Clackamas County is asking for the biggest share of funding out of all the other competing jurisdictions, so it'd be the other two counties and the city of Portland. So they've got some work to do there in terms of justification of their recommendation to move that Highway 43 project, because it wasn't as well ranked and it didn't get as good of public comment as Oregon City did. So I'm proud of Oregon City. We were on our on their public information effort that they did online. We got the second highest number of comments, and our comments were the most positive. So we think that's good. So
Good.
that's it.
Yes.
Yeah, hooray for us.
Just like to once again thank John and his team, Dana Webb especially, one of the Public Works staff members, engineer, did a great job putting together a very thorough application and a really good presentation that we were able to give to the selection committee. So just really excited. We'll keep pushing it forward. Next, Ms. Riggs has an update about the commission calendar for 2017.
You. I passed out at your places at the dais there before the meeting began a draft copy of the meetings scheduled for 2017. I will also, since there are several members of the commission that aren't present or unavailable at this point, I'll email this out. And if I don't hear any responses, as any concerns for these dates, then we will go ahead and use this as our official copy for the calendar coming up in 2017.
Commissioner O'Donnell's in the office. I'll give him this.
I'll give
Next, we have an update from Chief Band.
Two things. Pretty quick. One, you might start hearing about these. They're not, one is not completely cement yet, but, well, it's been poured, but it's not dry. A second SRO. We are have for a long time provided a school resource officer to the high school, and it's been a very successful collaboration between high school staff and the police department. Been great for kids. The school has always asked for more. Has wanted. We have kind of an interesting arrangement to make sure they have somebody 5 days a week, and literally, if our SRO's gone, they pay overtime for us to hire somebody to replace them, so there's always somebody at that school. So in that history, we have been saying to the school over and over again, look, at some point you guys are going to need to step up financially. We provided one full-time employee there, and I met with Larry Didway last week, and he has gotten clearance in the last school budget for basically about half the cost of an officer to add a second school resource officer. We are not going to moving some staffing from a drug position into that position. So we're not going to hire anybody to do that. What this second SRO is going to do, they're going to spend a lot of time at both middle schools. Obviously Gardner. Ogden is not inside the city limits, but a lot of Oregon City kids go to Ogden, and everybody from those schools goes to our high school. So having a presence there with Oregon City kids and getting that relationship started between what we do and kids as soon as possible. And then it is also a way that we're going to have a little more presence as well in the high school, and then at Case and at Oxlaw in town here. So they're going to be paying about $55,000 a year. They can never commit to more than a year at a time because of their budget, but it's a good thing. I'm really glad that they're stepping up, and I think it shows how valuable they see that second SRO. And then the other one is a new addition to the police department. We are bringing a canine dog aboard. We got an opportunity. Another city was there, had purchased this dog, and they were going to try and use the dog for drugs and for basically a pursuit dog. And we had researched this and thought about getting a drug dog for a while. And didn't want to do both. From what we can tell, a dog is good at one or the other, but generally it's tough to get a dog that is good at both. And we've got a great opportunity to get a dog for about half price, and we've got a great officer who is going to be utilizing that dog. We will bring that dog to you soon so you can meet him and be a cool. So we have two dogs that do tracking now that I think you probably met both of them before, and then this will be a third one. That's all I got.
Cool.
No purrs.
Yeah.
Puppy chow.
I do that for Dan's benefit.
All right, a couple more quick announcements. The 9th Annual Lions Club Holiday Bazaar is Saturday, November 19th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Gaffney Elementary School. So if you're hopefully come out and support the Lions in their Holiday Bazaar. Friends of Trees, you're well aware, is going to be planting in the McLaughlin, Berkeley Hills, Rivercrest neighborhoods on Saturday, December 3rd from 9 a.m. to 12:30. Meet at the Zion Lutheran Church, the staging areas, so please arrive around 8:45. We're still looking for volunteers. You can sign up at www.friendsoftrees.org/OC. So it was a very successful event last year, planting nearly 100 trees in our community, and seems like a great program that we'd like to keep moving. Just looking for some volunteers for that. The Pioneer Center's Holiday Giving Tree, in support of very low-income elderly and disabled veterans of Oregon City Residential Center. Select an ornament from the Giving Tree at the Pioneer Center and return the ornament and unwrapped gift by Tuesday, December 20th. Another great program that we provide. Mr. Gifford spoke a little bit earlier, but tomorrow, Thursday, November 17th, from 3 o'clock to 8:30, we're inviting the community to the Riverwalk Open House. It'll be held at the Gregory Forum at Clackamas Community College. There'll be several information boards, an open house opportunity. There'll also be presentations from the design firm, Snowhetta. Michelle Delk will be on hand, providing presentations at 4, 5:30, and at 7. And we also have several interactive tables where we'll be getting community input. We'll also have activities for the kids, thinking about what a playground could look like out on this site. So hopefully folks will come in. Our last event drew 800 folks. So we really hope we get to see that turn out for a very important project that we've been working on for several years here in Oregon City. I'm going to be out of the office next week. Mr. Parno will be acting city manager. And so go easy on him. And last, Mr. Gebeisman is going to pass around. So we're coming up with the new year and rolling into starting to prep for the new goals and objectives for the city commission for the 2000 for the next biennium coming up. So happy to present to you the goals that myself and the executive team have been able to put together based on what we believe we can accomplish in that 2-year period. From what we see as your executive team, as well as comments that we've heard from the commission over the last 2 years. So what to expect? We've laid out the goals and underneath each of the goals that we've identified, and provided an opportunity for you to review, comment, additional priorities in preparation for our goal-setting meeting on January 20th and 21st. And we are requesting that you review this and return it to the city manager's office no later than Friday, December 2nd. And then we are going to be following up with each of you to set up interviews on around December 6th with the facilitator who's going to be helping us out during that goal setting. And so we will also be sending this out in electronic format, which will make it a little easier for you to input your comments, but did want to provide you the work that we've done to date as a starting point as we begin our goal-setting preparation. So happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, that concludes my presentations for tonight.
All right. Questions or?
Good.
All right. Commissioner Shaw.
Well, let's see. You went to my usual little events here, CIC, and went to the chamber a couple of times here now, especially this morning was a great event at our new library, and I think they had a record turnout for their Good Morning America they do on Wednesday mornings, and Mo did a great job there, and everybody was really impressed, so thank you, Mo, for hosting that. and Commissioner Smith and I were in attendance to the Lotterette Park function where the Girl Scouts are looking at concepts of how we can improve the Lotterette Park, and that was a great deal. It was all weekend, and I didn't go all weekend. I don't know if you did, Krista. But some great ideas, and there was folks there from Impact, and actually the new instructor that's taken over the construction class at the high school. So there's going to be quite a complement of individuals working on this, and hats off to the Girl Scout troop and the leaders there that put that on. That's going to be a great little project going on there. So anyway, we'll continue to monitor that. Also went to the regional wastewater hearing that was at the county. As you know, this was an emergency session, and Mr. O'Donnell was there and testified. I testified. The mayor testified. And emergency meeting to merge the two district, Tri-City Sewer District, Clackamas County Sewer District, and on an emergency basis, so which I think I testified just because I think it's very unfair to the ratepayers of the Tri-City Sewer District that they weren't involved with it. So anyway, went to that, and then also to the regular evening meeting of the regional wastewater also. So anyway, that's all I got.
Commissioner Hyde.
Yeah, so I attended the Larry Dahl dedication of the memorial. As you know, they moved the memorial from near the VFW to up at the Clackamas County Public Services Building. And that was a very, very moving event. Drew, I don't know, probably a couple hundred people up there. Larry Dahl, as you know, received the Medal of Honor, and the medal was not displayed in an appropriate place for the community to see, so that's why they moved it up there. Stop by and visit that if you haven't had a chance to see that. His son, Michael Dahl, was there, and he spoke, so it was very interesting to hear him speak. So I attended that. I also attended the emergency meeting of the Board of County Commissioners on the Tri-City issue as well. I didn't speak, but I sat and listened for a couple hours. Also attended the C4 meeting that John was talking about, and I was ready to pounce if I needed to. So thankfully I didn't have to, as of course, like John said, the project moved forward to the next level. So I was very happy about that. And then just lastly, I had a tour of the Father's Heart this week. And it was quite an eye-opening experience to see the operation of that facility and all that they do in there. I was just really surprised. So anyway, just wanted to mention that, and that's it.
Let's see. Went to the Lotterette Park workshops for part of Sunday. The Girl Scout group that has been working on that has been amazing. I live right across the street, so they come by and they've done so much work engaging that neighborhood. And it's pretty incredible the process that they've done with getting so many people involved in that. I'm really excited to see what comes of that. Did not attend the emergency meeting, but attended the regional wastewater meeting, and the discussion at that was post-election, and the discussion was mainly about rates, and well, towards the end it was mainly about rates and the phasing of the digesters in addition to the treatment plant. But I think we've scheduled a work session with Gladstone and Westland, I think.
We're working on it.
Okay.
Yep. And
so
I
that's
think
our hope.
That's our hope, is to have a joint work session with the two other cities within Tri-City next Monday night. Still working that out.
Okay, and the reason for that was the regional wastewater group wanted each of the representative to go back to the cities and the county outside the cities to really have a conversation about the rates. There was discussion of changing the rates that they had kind of talked about for the last couple years, and so the idea of to have that discussion as Tri-Cities, but also bring that presentation to the commissions so that we can advise our hope as a commission. I don't think any of us right after the election were comfortable speaking for the cities without bringing it back to the each of the commissions. So that's what we want to do. Very happy to say that was my last regional wastewater meeting. And I'm also very happy to say it was also Commissioner Ludlow's last meeting as well. And one other thing, when's the tree lighting? Saturday? I think the tree lighting is typically the first Saturday of December, but I don't know what day that is.
It's the 3rd at 4:00.
3rd. And then December 7th, I guess before our regular meeting, 4:30, from 4:30 to 6 o'clock, we're having a little thing to celebrate my end of 8 years on the commission. So if you want to come by, I don't know what's all involved in that, but
something about a gold
come
watch
by.
or something.
Yeah, right.
A slap on the back.
I think
You get your check.
Yeah, get your check, your
You get
rebate.
paid for all 8
That's
years.
my birthday eve, by the way, too.
Ooh, making it even
So
harder
bring-
on us, aren't you?
It's a big one.
Oh.
All right, I think that's it. And we have no meetings after this tonight, no executive session. We had that before.
Yep.
So any other things? We're adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.